Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Jennifer Oliver O'Connell as the girl turns, and you are in my orbit on Red State, Substack, X, even TikTok, wherever you may find this video. It has been 6 years since AB5, Assembly Bill 5, was signed into law. This is the California law that basically outlaws independent contractors, 1099 workers, and claims misclassification and seeks to unionize every worker in the workforce. You know, every workforce should have a union because they need protections, or at least that was the supposed intent for California Federation of Labor and the former Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez when she foisted this madness onto over 4.5 million independent contractors, freelancers, solopreneurs, gig workers. The intent was obviously because they hated Uber and Lyft, and they also hated independent truckers, and they wanted to unionize them so that they could get those union dollars. Took a long fight with the truckers, and sadly, they lost their battle. Their last court battle 4.5 years later got kicked, so they're now under the thumb of this evil law. The gig workers got Prop 22 for the basically rideshare drivers and rideshare delivery drivers got Prop 22 that was unanimously voted on by the voters, saying they need to stay independent contractors. They're allowed to do that. But now they're coming at them with another assembly bill to unionize them. It's a never-ending nightmare that began September 18th, I believe, 2019, and became established law enforcement January 1st, 2020. I know it upended my world. It upended so many other people's worlds. And, I was in the fight for quite some time, still in the fight, but was majorly in the fight to get them to pay attention that they are destroying people's freedom to work as they choose. They're destroying people's livelihoods. And really, this is just, it's unconstitutional. It's unconscionable that you want to tell people, no, you can't do that. That's not a real, as Lorena Gonzalez once tweeted, those are not real jobs. Who are you to say? So I have basically documented, as someone who has been in the fight, documented some of that fallout. Where are we 5 years later in terms of 5 years of enforcement from January 1st, 2020, and now we're in 2025? Where are we now? What's happened with AB5? It's a cautionary tale for sure. I wrote up a piece in the Federalist, got an op-ed published in the Federalist. It'll land on Labor Day, and it basically interviews former independent professionals or current independent professionals and those who have been in the fight with me just for a long, long time. And what are our viewpoints? What are our thoughts? And why we still need to continue. The hope may be lost for California because they just seem hell-bent on keeping this law alive and keeping people under their thumb. But for other states, it's a cautionary tale. New Jersey is fighting its battle now against an AB5 type rule that they are trying to implement in the New Jersey legislature, or the New Jersey Department of Labor is trying to implement this. And I know Kim Cavan and others are strongly voicing their opposition to it and pointing out that, gee, look how well it did in California. Or Mercatus study that came out earlier this year or maybe later last year, 2024, basically documented, used empirical data and showed that AB5 did absolutely nothing to improve full-time employment. And it helped in the reduction of not only full-time employment, but of independent work. So it was a major drag on employment and the economic life of California. Yet politicians continue to either ignore it or still are trying to foist one form or another of it on us. So I'm going to have a great discussion with Jim Thompson, he's a freelance attorney as former prosecutor, worked full time as a prosecutor, but freelance attorney now, and political cartoonist. He actually did sports cartooning for LA Times, award winning, and AB5 hit him just like it hit the rest of us. And he ended up going in another direction. Going to talk to him. Karen Anderson, who created the group Freelancers Against AB5 and documented over 600 stories, more than 600 stories of people whose professions were just wiped out in an instant thanks to this law. She's also an independent writer herself, and I'm going to talk a little bit with her. And Linda Pinky George, fabulous lady, vocalist, advocate. She actually is from the belly of the beast. She worked with the unions for decades, and then they tried to screw her over, and hell have no fury, as they say. She's getting them back, but she gives a great perspective from that lens, from what they have tried to do, and that AB5 was just a disaster, whether you're unionized or not unionized. It was just a disaster of a law. So enjoy these interviews, get some insights, and check out the Federalist article if you get a chance. Here we go.
Was AB5 was signed into law on September 17th, I think.
17th.
On September.
And the internet says.
September 18th.
Okay.
2019.
2019. So yeah, we're two days shy of the 6-year anniversary, basically, because I mean,
September,
even though technically it's been about 5 years.
Yes.
It's the 6th year. Tell me your AB5 story. I don't think I've ever heard it because you document so many others. What is your AB5 story? How did AB5 affect you personally, and what sparked you into starting Freelancers Against AB5?
Well, first of all, I was living in Hawaii at the time in I was starting to go back and forth beginning in 2017 from Hawaii to Dana Point, California, where my mother's still living. And she was starting to have dementia and problems, And so we had to, as a family, come together and take over her finances and stuff. And so I had to do a lot of back and forth, traveling. And then when it became obvious to me that I was going to have to move in with my mother full time, that's when AB5 hit. And I'm like, how am I going to take care of my mother as a thriving freelance writer, and live in California and have all of that taken away? I'd be able to work out of my mom's house and take care of my mother. So the prospect of that, it was just completely an existential threat to my career,
Wow.
And so after it was passed, I mean, I remember waking up and seeing it. I was scrolling through Flipbook or whatever, and I saw the headline. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to destroy me. It's going to destroy my career. And 2 months later, I started the group on Facebook because I wanted to hear about everybody else's stories. And one of the things that prompted me to do that was that I had been a member of the California Freelance Writers United group.
Yeah.
And I got a little bit fed up with them because they were only interested in themselves. They had no curiosity about what's going on with other professions. They were don't get me started about that group.
Oh, trust me, I had my dealings with that ridiculous group too. So
I started the group. Originally, one of the reasons why I started Freelancers Against AB5 and made it public was because I was curious, what about golf caddies? What about fly fishermen? What about music teachers? I mean, surely it's not just writers that are complaining about this, right? And
Yeah.
sure enough, all these hundreds and hundreds of stories pouring in from across the vast swath of professions. And I've identified about 600 different categories of professions that are, impacted in some way by AB5. But then I was like, still a member of the California Freelance Writers Group, and they were busy wanting to, craft their own exemption. Actually, writers had an exemption, but we had a cap. We had
Yeah.
a cap on submissions at
Yep,
35 a year.
35 a year or 35 a month. It was some ridiculous number.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they got a seat at the table because one of their leaders was the president of the Lorena Gonzalez fan club as the editor or one of the writers for Voice of San Diego down there, So that's why they had a seat at the table. But my thing is, like, we can elevate and amplify how horrible AB5 is. We're all writers here. Let's start writing about how it's affecting other people. I've got this story, and here's a story about a forensic nurse, and who is saying rape victims are going to be impacted by this. And here's a story about this a nurse anesthetist that can no longer operate or work in a hospital setting as an independent contractor. And they just shot it down. They said, we are not interested in anybody else. We are only interested in ourselves. And I just don't think like that, and I never have. I wanted to see, I wanted to know, well, once the stories started coming in, it was just mind-blowing.
You're right.
We're talking about people like real estate appraisers who are the very definition of independent. Yet, because they didn't have a specific exemption in the first iteration of AB5, there are people that were losing work as real estate appraisers.
Yeah, I get notes and comments on if I write something even remotely close to AB5 or about California business, I get notes from people saying, yeah, I lost my profession because of AB5. It's like it was so that just this whole wide sweeping destruction of so many people's livelihoods and without any conscience.
It was hard.
So, Jim Thompson, tell me, AB5 2019, it was signed into law by Governor Newsom. 2020, 2020, it was established as law, and they started quote unquote enforcing it. What is your AB5 story? What was your profession, and what was the effect once AB5 was instituted?
Well, it should have technically impacted both things that I did, but only one of my professions was impacted. So I'm also a trial lawyer, and I have been a freelancer. I've worked by myself for a long time. So technically, I'm a freelancing attorney, but I'm also a cartoonist, or I was in 2020, and I was working for the LA Times as a sports cartoonist, and AB5 came along, and I was called by my editor, Jim. Hey, I just want to let you know, everybody loves your work, but this new law kind of puts a kink in that. You can only submit 35 pieces to be exempt, and then after that, we either have to hire you or fire you. So I was read up against 35, and they said, well, you've got 3 more submissions. So unless they change the law, after 3 more submissions, we can't publish your cartoon. So AB5 went into effect. I was stuck on 35, and the funny part about this is once AB5 took effect, and cartoonists were technically part of that class that should be hired. And I posted on X, used to be Twitter, and I was complaining, and I tagged Lorena Gonzalez. Now, at that time, Gonzalez didn't know who I was, but I was working for the LA Times, so I've got to be on her side, right? I want to be employed by the LA Times. So she responded, "Hey, Jim, oh, sorry, we're working on a fix, and we'll try to fix this for you." So bad idea, I thought, because I did a cartoon. It's like, yeah, you set yourself up, Lorena.
Yeah.
So I did a cartoon of her, and she's holding a giant check. It was like a check of stuff, that your mouth can't cash. And eventually her and her commie friend that works for Cal Berkeley, she's actually a communist. I forget her name, but anyway, they both eventually blocked me because they didn't like me drawing constant cartoons about her. But AB5, so AB5 actually was a good thing and a bad thing. It was the bad thing because after that, LA Times, even though there was going to be a workaround next year, which would be 2021.
Yeah.
I just wasn't going to wait around. And Red State, Jennifer gave me a call and said, "Hey, do you want to work for us? Do cartoons for us, but you can also write." So I started working for freelancing for Red State, and that was the good thing. The bad thing is couldn't do my sports cartoons for the LA Times. But frankly, at that point, the LA Times was not a really good fit for me because the paper had taken a dramatic move to the left. It even affected the sports department. That was what I was doing. I was doing editorial sports cartoons, and I couldn't work in that environment. Even though I was working remotely and submitting everything, I just couldn't take the politics of the LA Times. So I wasn't going to work for them anyway. So good thing, bad thing.
So I am with Linda Pinky George, old friend, original AB5 warrior. We all just kind of, it's amazing. We're all independents and Republicans and non-party and people who care less about politics. And AB5 activated all of us and unified all of us. That's the sad but amazing thing about this horrific little law, big law. So, Linda, please tell me what were you doing before 2019? So, before September of 2019, what were you doing? What was your profession?
I was actually just recently retired disabled from the state of California after working 30 years. I was a union statewide activist representative for SEIU Local 1000 members. And after significant retaliation, 3 illegal terminations, I was at a CalPERS appeal. And, the union lost my first appeal. So they told me, here's your documents. You got to go back to your legislature and just get the law changed. So I knew everybody was on Twitter, now X. So I popped up and I started getting involved with my own case to see AB5. And I thought, what madness is this? Because I've spent my career telling people that are disabled that they should go back to work. Okay, because I was a SSDI adjudicator for 14 years. And every day I would type letters, in spite of your limitations, you can go back to work. So it was very difficult for me to perceive able-bodied people just losing their jobs, seeing them wiped out in masses. But most of all, seeing Lorena Gonzalez and what a bully she is. And that always speaks to my heart when I see people bullied. Okay, I've been invested a lot in zero tolerance of workplace violence. I lobby for it. I've been a victim of it. And I think now that the law has passed in California that it's illegal, now I want to make sure that it goes further, because all of this, well, when we first met Lorena, you know, she was with the union, she had her trolls, she had her own method of trolling us, and back and forth. We all went for how much, 2 years almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Until she finally blocked us one by one. And I think that's our badge of honor.
Most definitely, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, it was just really difficult to see that. And then one day I randomly threw like different people in the state into a X or Twitter direct message group, and we all just became friends and started fighting together, you know. And I think that's really the key to organizing, is the unity and the message. Yeah. So once we all band together with, you know, we all had internal fights with what was the right way to go with Freelancers of USA, Kim Gavin, all of them. But we all had the same goal, which was to put in California 1 million independent contractors back to work. Yeah. That was the goal.
Yeah. So politicians, apparently Steve Hilton is running for governor. I have no idea who else is. Katie Porter. She's running for governor. Yeah. And this is, to me, an issue that could get you some votes because when you're a governor or someone who is running for president, you are, getting votes from all people, not just your favorites. Why? Steve Hilton apparently has a lot of weird misinformation about AB5 on his website, saying, oh, well, Prop 22 solved it. And Karen Anderson has gone hard against him to say, look, you need to make sense of this. You need to be better about this because you're running for governor. Right. And of course, Katie Porter is going to do whatever she wants to do. So, I know that's mean. I think she's on the now, so she's thinned out a little bit. But why? But even you got senators who avoid. It's conservative. The only senator or the only congressman who bothers to do anything about it is Kevin Kiley from the state of California. Why is it, do you think, that politicians keep running away from AB5 when there is proof ad infinitum that it's been an abject failure?
Yeah, I wish I had an answer, because to me, it's almost a black and white issue. Just listen to the people who are freelancers. A lot of the market has exploded with freelancers, and the freelancers want to stay as freelancers. A lot of us just don't want to work for an employer. Listen to the people who are affected. And you're right, there's been just a lot of misinformation about AB5 and 22. It really wasn't a fix. It's really odd that you see so many ostensibly smart people that say, well, there's a great fix, right? No, it's not. It wasn't at all. Wasn't a fix at all. And it even goes up to Washington, D.C., where you got unions, pushing to try to federalize AB5, and so many millions of freelancers are saying, you're going to ruin my industry, or you're going to ruin me. I won't be able to make a living. I don't want to work for somebody. Leave me alone.
Right.
I don't know why smart people don't dive into it, because it's really not that complicated. And a fix is super easy. It's like, if you want to be a freelancer, let us be a freelancer. I don't get the insistence. I actually do. The reason that we have so many people that are pushing it is because, unions are taking a big hit over the last 20 years. Hardly anybody belongs to a union, as opposed to 50 years ago or 60 years ago. And it's because gig economy has exploded, and people just want to work for themselves. I think that if they talk to people, maybe they would get the idea that, well, the majority of people that are freelancing really don't want to do anything other than freelance.
Yeah.
It's our choice, right?
It should be. It should be.
Should be. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, with Besettis and with Bonta, we're just not going to get that here because they're right now they're too busy fighting Trump. But I'd never hesitate when he sues Trump over something on X to tell Bonta, or when they complain about the money that's missing, the fraud, all the money from the homeless, then why don't you put 1 million independent contractors back to work and get that tax base again? For me, it's kind of Occam's razor, but we're too busy playing politics in California. This progressive government we have here in California is really destroying all of our businesses. And that's the sad part about it, because they absolutely have made California not business friendly or unfriendly to business, however you want to say it. Yeah. But, and especially, I didn't see this before until I started doing city government, running for city council. I am very shocked on how much small business gets the raw end of the deal in this state.
Yeah,
majorly. They really do. And I can see why they want every independent contractor to be self-employed or a small business, because then they could take your taxes more.
Yeah.
They just, that's all it is. And I know someone said it to me early on that, they're just doing all this for taxes. They want us all together. But now it's starting to really show, because Paso Robles is nothing but small businesses.
Right. I still don't understand why politicians are so gun shy. The supposedly conservative Republican politicians are so gun shy about talking about AB5, especially since it is part of what is ruining the state. Why do you think that is? I mean, you're kind of in a battle with Steve Hilton, I noticed,
yes.
Because he is, first of all, misrepresenting that, AB5 is not a problem. And it's like, you're talking about you're going to do this and do that. It is the problem. And if you recognize it as a problem, you're going to get some guaranteed votes. What say you?
I think the problem is that people, Republicans, even allies in our fight, don't understand that AB5 is still a problem. They think it's been repealed by Prop 22, or they think it's the exemptions have taken care of it. So as the years progress, it just gets back burner. And then you have somebody like Steve Hilton, who's running for governor, who clearly has misrepresents AB5 on his own website. He doesn't even have the facts straight. And the only time he's ever mentioned it that I've ever seen him, he thought it was repealed. So with that kind of representation, it's just really hard to make inroads. And the media perpetrates a lot of the mythology and misinformation about AB5 too. They just regurgitate each other's erroneous reporting.
Yeah.
But Prop 22, I think, confuses people, because yesterday I read in the San Francisco Examiner that Prop 22 overturned AB5. And of course it didn't. No. It only applied to rideshare and app-based delivery only.
Yeah. And they, what angers me still is that they will not stop calling it the gig law or the gig economy. It's like independent, which is one of the reasons why I push as much as possible in my writing, independent professional. Exactly. It's like there are people who studied, you studied, get certifications, do training, the whole nine in order to do what we do. Have some respect. We're not a gig. We are professionals who worked hard to be professionals, and this was a robbery of professions.
Yes, and I always appreciate that you use the term independent professionals, because that's what we are talking about. All of the dolphins in the tuna net are the independent professionals who get caught up in this law and are unable to operate as independent contractors. and that could be anybody from a nurse anesthetist to a pharmacist, and every profession that you can think of. And so with Prop 22, the headlines are all, well, it exempts the gig economy, and the gig workers could be dog walkers on,
Mhm.
platforms, or you could be a online tutor or a transcriptionist
Yeah.
utilizing a platform, and those people are not exempt. Well,
No,
dog
and
walkers
those
do have sort of an exemption, but
yeah, unless it expires like the manicurist, and then
right, right.
they're back at square one now.
That's yeah, and if it doesn't hit you in your own home and on your own doorstep, you're not aware of how damaging and destructive it is. So the manicures were living in a false sense of security all those years when they had
Yeah.
that set clause that, the temporary exemption that was going to expire during the pandemic, but they extended it a little bit because of the pandemic. And then it expired uh, in January of this year, and all of a sudden 130,000 licensed manicures technically are not allowed to rent booths from any kind of salon, whether it's a high-end salon in Beverly Hills that has a independent contractor licensed manicurist in the salon, or whether it's one of these larger operations, you know, that just specialize in nail pedicures and manicures.
Yeah, I mean, literally, the evil Lorena Gonzalez has upended entire industries by this law, supposedly to get people in the union. And of course, what we have learned 5 years later, thanks to Lilia P's research, I can't pronounce her last name to save my life, Pashgali, I think, but
Yes. Mhm.
thanks to her research, it didn't do anything that it claimed it was going to do.
No, it
It's like
actually
it
drove
didn't.
down, increased unemployment,
Yeah,
across, in regular W-2 jobs, and it decreased independent contracting. And as far
right.
as unions, I don't know. Were they able to unionize people? I think that they got their big um, cash cow when they were able to corral the truckers, when the trucking industry lost its final uh, appeal and litigation, and Sacramento has now captured the trucking industry. They're not letting go of AB5 at all.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
and I mean, the result of that is half the people left the state of, actually now owner operators, they were starting to pack up a few years ago, and now they've totally shuttered the doors, and you don't have industry in California. And what the result is, supply chain stuff and empty shelves and the whole, and again, this is stuff that nobody's talking about. They
no,
want to make it look like, oh, it's all good, it's all fine, everything's fine.
yeah, it's always, you know, Uber and Lyft suck up about 99% of the oxygen when you're talking about misclassification issues and the,
Yeah.
pursuit of the independent of the independent workforce. But they really comprise about 5% of of the entirety of the professions that we're talking about that are under the purview of the ABC test of AB5.
Yeah.
And all of its exemptions that come with fine print and caveats, which is I've always said, nothing bugs me more when I see it written that, oh, AB5 was so bad that they had to pass an emergency bill to exempt 100 professions, and then people think, oh, problem solved.
Nope.
Well, no,
Problem not solved.
the problem is not solved because all of those exemptions, a lot of them are smoke and mirrors, and they come with fine print, and they come with up from between 6 to 12 to 13 caveats that you have to jump through. So a profession like online tutoring, for example, they may have a quote unquote exemption, but in the real world, these tutoring companies are not able to meet all 11 criteria of the referral category, referral
Right.
agency category of exemptions that they fall under. So it's a lot of it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But my question is, where's Gavin?
Yeah.
So with his mindset over there, still running for president, he's imploding to the point where he's trolling back, and that's generally what
Yay.
happens.
Wow.
Okay, he's imploding. So hopefully when we get a new governor in, that they will take a second look at AB5. But I don't know how far they're going to take it. If we get a Democratic governor, they're going to keep AB5. Because let me tell you, go ahead.
Even the Republican candidate, Steve Hilton, and Karen Anderson is very vociferous about it, is dismissing AB5 and dismissing independent contractors. It's like it's like
Wow.
that we're always never important until we're important.
Right.
So I'm not even sure if there's a Republican governor, and I hope there is, that gets in California, that they'll do anything about it. What do you think, from especially since you have union background and know how they work, what would get them to pull the plug on this and tell their people to put in a repeal act or back repeal?
You know, right now they're in a reprieve because SEIU International, Mary Kay Henry, just retired about less than a year ago, maybe about a year ago. She handed it over to April Verrett, and April and Liz, AFL-CIO Schuler, they just combined.
Ah, right.
They are now one union. So what they're doing, they already said this, remember, before the election, Liz Schuler had already said that she was going to do everything she can while we had a Republican president to preserve where they were. Okay. So I think they're going back, because when I was a top union representative, they already know what they're going to do 4 years ahead.
Right.
Yeah, because it confused me when I was first there. I was like, well, how do you guys know this is going to happen, right? And then when I realized it depended on governor and what they've already pre-negotiated. But the problem is, I don't see Trump being all that concerned about independent contractors either. I don't want this to become a new normal, but it is to the point when these progressive or liberal parties start losing because they played dirty tricks to begin with.
Right.
Anytime you build a house on a shaky foundation, it's going to fall. But that's where we are in California, where the governor is taken to trolling the president. So AB5, where are we going to be? I'd say it'd probably take another 4 years to 5 to get someone's ear. But things in government happen slow. So I've always learned that anytime you pick a fight with the state, especially the state, buckle in for at least 8 years. And we're only at 4 or 5 right now?
We're at 5 years. September, it was signed into law, I believe, September 20th, give or take 2019, and it got instituted January 1st, 2020. So,
right. So we're at 5 years. I've been fighting CalPERS for 10.
Okay.
Wow. And because there's one thing about the state of California, I worked for it my whole life. They don't want to admit when they're wrong.
Right.
They would rather fix it. They'll go underground. I've seen it over and over in 30 years, right? Oh my God, we just got, it's reactive. I mean, and that is California as a whole. They're reactive. And so that's kind of what they're doing right now, is just kind of in Paso, they're trying to fix what they did wrong. But here in California, they got their heels dug in that this was the thing to do. Why is this still the thing to do? Again, now that the unions have grown bigger, I promise you, they're right there trying to figure out a way to get that passed, especially if they get a Democratic president after Trump. Because that's what Liz Schuler said to begin with. She said, we're going to do what we can to preserve and just wait it out. I mean, really, the unions don't have any other power than that.
Do you think AB5 will ever be repealed?
No. I don't. Once they captured the low-hanging fruit, I mean, they're still pursuing Uber and Lyft in some way. But trucking was really the death knell for a repeal. Because now that the trucking industry, after almost 2.5 years of litigation, where they were allowed to be independent contractors during that time, independent truckers. Once all that litigation came to an end, then AB5 applied to the trucking industry. I'm looking at it going, the legislature's not going to let go of this.
Yeah, because they got ultimately what they wanted. They want to control the transportation.
So maybe it's just one of those. I just don't know. The only real way to get rid of AB5 is through a ballot initiative, and the voters vote to repeal not only AB5, well, AB 2257. I could cite the labor code that we would want repealed.
Yeah.
And also pull out the dynamics decision.
The dynamics decision needs to be, overturned.
But it has to come from the voters. And now there's just so much misinformation about AB5 and so much like sort of complacency or apathy about it. I mean, it's hard enough even to get. It would be like herding cats.
But I think it's kind of like it's a tick that's burrowed in, and I just don't think that people are going to go, well, it's been the law for like 5 years. You should be cool with it. I mean, it's working, right? It's like, no, it's not. But all right, since you think it is, I think that it would actually take a shift in the political environment in California. In other words, more conservatives, more Republicans in the state house, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Again, I think it's like it's a tick that's just attached, and we can't get rid of it unless we burn its butt out.
And if you don't, people die from it or get Lyme disease or all types of other stuff. I mean, there's just that's a wonderful analogy, because there's so many negatives to leaving a tick in.
Yeah. So for me, it was a good thing, bad thing. I obviously I don't wish that it had happened, but I don't think that I'd be writing / cartooning for Red State had it not happened. So in my case, it actually worked out, and I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met the other folks that are part of the town hall family. So for me, it wasn't such a bad thing. But overall, it's a terrible law, and the people who drafted it are awful, terrible people. Yeah. So the idea that it's going to be nationalized, I think, is probably dead, at least for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't think Trump is going to do even if it were proposed and put on his desk. I think there's enough people who would say this is not a good idea.